My name's Rachel, and I'm 37, living in the heart of Atlanta, Georgia, where the city hums with ambition and opportunity. I share a sleek company-owned condo with my husband, Lucas, in a high-rise overlooking the skyline. We both work for Brooks Construction, a powerhouse founded by my father-in-law that pulls in billions a year, building everything from skyscrapers to sprawling suburbs across the South. I never imagined I'd be here running boardrooms and crunching numbers for a construction empire. But life has a way of throwing curveballs. Growing up, I watched my single mom juggle two jobs waitressing by day, cleaning offices by night to keep us afloat in a cramped apartment in Macon. She taught me to be sharp, to make decisions fast, and to never back down from a challenge. That grit got me through college and into a banking job, where I learned to navigate budgets and investments like a chess game. I loved the thrill of it, the way numbers told a story if you knew how to listen. But when I met Lucas, I thought my story might shift to something softer, maybe a quiet life as a homemaker, building a family. My initial hopes quickly vanished. Lucas, in many ways, is my polar opposite. He possesses a gentle, reassuring charm, yet it carries an underlying fragility. Born into immense privilege, with a trust fund at his disposal, he never experienced the need to strive for anything. His father transformed Brooks Construction from a modest enterprise into a powerhouse, acquiring rivals and earning immense respect through his formidable intellect and assertive approach. Lucas was destined to follow in his father's footsteps, prepared to assume leadership. However, he lacked the fortitude for such a role. One evening, as we lounged on our couch, engrossed in a trivial reality show, he confessed, "I'm not suited to be CEO, Rachel." His voice was soft, almost expressing a sense of relief. "I'd merely be a figurehead. It's easier that way." I remember staring at him, my heart sinking, wondering how someone could be so content to drift through life. Me, I'm wired differently. Decisions come naturally. I weigh options, trust my gut, and move. My mom used to say I was born with a calculator in one hand and a plan in the other. I had envisioned leaving my banking career to focus on my marriage to Lucas, perhaps even starting a family. However, my father-in-law had different plans. Soon after our wedding, he summoned me to his office, a room adorned with wood paneling, blueprints, and accolades. "Rachel," he stated, his gaze piercing despite his age, "this company requires someone of your caliber. You've got a head for numbers and a spine to match work with us." I hesitated, picturing the quiet life I'd imagined, but the challenge in his voice hooked me. I said yes, and that choice changed everything done. At first, I was just another employee, learning the ropes of construction, timelines, contracts, labor costs. But my father-in-law saw something in me. A few months in, he started inviting me to board meetings, asking my take on deals or budgets. The board, a group of gray-haired men used to running the show, raised eyebrows at the founder's daughter-in-law sitting at the table. I could feel their skepticism, like I was some outsider crashing their club, but I didn't shrink. I'd spent years in banking, analyzing risks and spotting gaps others missed. So I spoke up, offering ideas on streamlining costs or negotiating better supplier deals. Slowly, their frowns turned to nods. They started seeking my input, even deferring to me on big calls. Lucas, though, was barely there. He was a board member by title, but he'd skip meetings, claiming they were too technical, or he had other stuff to do. The board didn't bat an eye. His dad's legacy gave him a free pass. One night, I came home from a marathon meeting, my head buzzing with strategies, and found Lucas sprawled on the couch, flipping through channels. "Why didn't you show up today?" I snapped, dropping my bat. "You're supposed to be part of this." He didn't even look up. "You've got it covered, Rachel. They listened to you, not me." His casual tone suggested it didn't matter, but I stood there, frustration bubbling. Did he even care about the company or us? That moment was a turning point, revealing the cracks in our marriage as his indifference seeped into every aspect of our lives. Driven by a fierce need to prove myself, not just as the founder's daughter-in-law, but as someone capable of steering the company, I immersed myself in work. My father-in-law became my mentor, teaching me the intricacies of the business, how to read a room, when to assert, when to concede. I thrived on the thrill of making things happen, of seeing my ideas translate into tangible growth. Yet with each step I climbed, Lucas seemed to drift further away. A persistent feeling gnawed at me. Something was about to break. Work became my anchor, the one place where I felt in control. By the time my father-in-law retired, I was running point on major decisions at Brooks Construction. The board leaned on me asking for my take on acquisitions, labor disputes, even marketing campaigns. I'd walk into those meetings with a stack of notes and a plan. My old banking instincts kicking in numbers don't lie, and I knew how to make them sing. Our sales climbed, profits grew, and I felt a fire in my chest, like I was finally doing what I was meant to. Growing up, I'd watched my mom scrape by, and now I was leading a company that employed thousands of people with families who counted on us. That responsibility drove me, kept me up at night, sketching out ways to make the business stronger. Lucas, though, was a ghost. He'd show up at the office some mornings, all press shirts and easy smiles. But by lunch, he was gone. I'd find him at home playing video games or napping as if the company his dad built was just a hobby. I tried talking to him, hoping he'd step up, especially after his father stepped down. Lucas, this is your legacy. I'd say, my voice sharp with frustration. Don't you want to be part of it? He'd shrug that same maddening shrug and mutter, "You're doing fine without me." It stung not just because he was opting out, but because it felt like he was opting out of us too. Our conversations had dwindled to mere small talk, focusing on mundane topics like groceries, devoid of any genuine connection. Nights were spent lying awake, staring at the ceiling of our condo, consumed by thoughts of how we had drifted so far apart. Then, like a storm, my stepsister Camila burst into our lives. Camila, 3 years my senior, was a whirlwind of charisma and sharp edges. We had grown up in the same house after my mom married her stepdad, a gruff man who never stayed in one place for long. Early on, Camila learned to charm her way through life, perpetually chasing something grander. She adorned herself in fancy clothes, dated wealthy boyfriends, and cultivated a life that screamed success. However, her marriage to a hotshot lawyer met a fiery end when her infidelity led to a scandal, culminating in her enraged ex storming into our parents' house, loudly proclaiming his betrayal. I was swamped with work, so Lucas went to calm him down. He's good at that diffusing tension with his quiet, steady vibe. Camilo was all praise afterward, calling me to gush. "Your husband's amazing. Rachel handled that guy like it was nothing." I brushed it off too, buried in spreadsheets. Think much of it, but Camilla saw Lucas differently after that to her. He wasn't just my laid-back husband. He was the heir to Brooks Construction. A golden ticket. She didn't know he was barely involved, that his executive title was a courtesy from his dad. Camille's always been drawn to wealth. Her ex's high salary was enough to keep her loyal, but it was why she married him. Now freshly divorced and drowning in alimony payments, she was on the hunt again. I didn't see it coming. I was too caught up in board meetings and growth projections to notice the way she started lingering around Lucas, laughing too loud at his jokes, texting him about catching up. One evening I came home, exhausted, my head spinning from a day of negotiating a new contract. Lucas was waiting in the living room, his usual easy grin gone. "Rachel, we need to talk," he said, his voice heavy. My stomach twisted. Lucas never sounded serious. I sat down, bracing myself. "Camille is pregnant," he said, looking at the floor. "It's mine. I want a divorce." The words hit like a punch, knocking the air out of me. Pregnant. Divorce, my mind reeled, trying to piece it together. Camila, my stepsister, who'd always chased what wasn't hers. Lucas, my husband, who'd barely cared enough to show up for work, let alone our marriage. I wanted to scream to demand answers, but all I could manage was when she coming to talk about this. He mumbled something about her visiting. On my next day off, I nodded, numb, already knowing I'd need to face this head on, just like everything else. The days after Lucas's bombshell felt like wading through fog. I went through the motions at work, leading meetings, signing off on deals, but my mind kept replaying his words. Camille is pregnant. I want a divorce. It wasn't just the betrayal that stung. It was the absurdity of it. Camila, who'd always chased shiny things, had set her sights on Lucas, thinking he was some big shot. CEO, and Lucas too spineless to say no. I felt like an idiot for not seeing it, for letting work blind me to the cracks in my life. I had to protect my place at Brooks Construction. Divorcing Lucas meant I'd be just another ex-daughter-in-law, and I couldn't risk losing the role I'd fought for. The next morning, I drove to my in-laws' sprawling home outside Atlanta, my nerves jangling. My father-in-law was in his study, surrounded by old photos and construction plans. I told him everything: Lucas's affair, Camilla's pregnancy, the divorce. My mother-in-law, hovering nearby, gasped, her eyes lighting up at the mention of a grandchild. But one sharp look from my father-in-law silenced her. He leaned back, his face unreadable, then smiled. "Rachel, you're the heart of this company," he said. "I don't care what Lucas does. You keep running things, I'll handle him." Relief washed over me, mixed with a pang of sadness. My father-in-law valued the business, his legacy over his own son. But for me, it meant I could keep my purpose, my place. When my day off came, Camilla showed up at our condo, all smug confidence, her designer bag swinging like a trophy. "Rachel," she said, her voice dripping with pity, "I'm so sorry you couldn't have kids." "Don't worry. I'll make sure you get plenty of money to start over. Just leave this place." She gestured at the condo, like she already owned it. Lucas sat there, silent, his face blank as ever. I wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Camilla thought she was stealing some billionaire lifestyle, but she had no idea how little Lucas actually had. I kept my cool, channeling the same focus I used in boardrooms. "Divorce is fine," I said, my voice steady, "but we'll need lawyers to sort out alimony and property. And Camilla, you really think Lucas is the prize you're after?" Her eyes narrowed, but she waved it off. All bravado. "I know it's real, Rachel. Lucas has got everything I need." I bit back a smirk. She thought he was the president, the heir, sitting on a fortune. She didn't know the condo was company property, or that Lucas's executive salary barely covered his coffee runs. I let her talk her arrogance, filling the room while I mentally mapped out my next steps. This wasn't just about a broken marriage. It was about protecting what I built, and I wasn't letting either of them take it from me. The divorce negotiations were set for the next day, and I was ready. I'd hired a sharp lawyer, Mia, who'd handled high-stakes corporate cases and knew how to keep things fair, but firm. We met in a sleek conference room at Brooks Construction, the Atlanta skyline glinting through the windows. Camilla strutted in acting like she'd already won, while Lucas slouched beside her, his usual and different mask in place. I sat across from them, Mia at my side, my heart pounding, but my face calm. I'd spent years outsmarting competitors in boardrooms. I could handle this. Camilla started strong, tossing her hair. "Rachel, name your price for alimony. I'll make sure you're taken care of." Her tone was patronizing, like she was doing me a favor. Mia raised an eyebrow, then slid a document across the table. "Since you're offering, we'll be claiming alimony from both Lucas and you, Camilla," she said coolly. Camilla's jaw dropped me. "I'm already paying my ex," she sputtered. I leaned back, watching her confidence crack. She hadn't expected this, hadn't thought through the mess she'd made. My mom's voice echoed in my head. Camilla, who always sought easy ways out, was now facing significant difficulties, particularly with the property division. Still struggling to recover, she asserted that the condo belonged to Lucas's family and should not be part of the split. Mia, however, quickly corrected her, stating that the condo and its land were owned by Brooks Construction, and the company held the authority to decide who resided there. Lucas, surprised, mumbled, "Wait, I thought it was Dad's." Camilla's face paled as she sharply asked, "So we can't live here?" Mia's reply was clear. "You can if the company allows it, but that's up to the acting CEO." Mia then glanced at me, and I witnessed Camilla's eyes widen as the realization dawned on her. Camilla said, turning to Lucas, "You're not the CEO." I stepped in, my voice calm, but firm. "I'm the acting CEO. Camilla Lucas is an advisor, no executive power. My father-in-law made me president when he retired. The board trusts me to run things." Lucas looked away, embarrassed, while Camilla's face twisted in disbelief. "You're joking," she snapped. Glaring at Lucas, "You let me think. You were the boss." He shrugged that same infuriating shrug, and I almost laughed. Camilla had banked on Lucas being her ticket to wealth, but she'd misread the board entirely. Mia, still chuckling, asked me, Can Lucas and Camila stay in the condo? I could answer. Cam jumped in its company property, so it's free for Lucas. Right? Mia shook her head, sliding over a rental agreement. It's leased to employees at market rate. Here's the figure. The number was steep. Atlanta's luxury condo market doesn't come cheap. Lucas's eyes widened. My salary can't cover that, he said almost to himself. Camilla looked like she'd been slapped. She'd walked in thinking she'd won a mansion. Now she was staring at rent she couldn't afford. I felt a strange mix of pity and triumph. Camille's whole plan, seducing Lucas, chasing his supposed fortune, had collapsed. Lucas, who never cared about money or responsibility, was just as lost. I'd spent years covering our expenses, pouring my salary into rent and bills while Lucas coasted, now with no savings to split. The divorce was clean, but brutal. Camille's dreams of a lavish life were dust, and Lucas was left with nothing but his own indecision. I walked out of that room feeling lighter, ready to leave them both behind and focus on what mattered. My company, my team, my future. The fallout was almost poetic. Camila's lies unraveled faster than I expected. A few weeks after the negotiations, word got back to Lucas's family that her pregnancy claim was a sham. She'd spun the story to trap Lucas, banking on his family's wealth to bail her out of her own financial mess. My mother-in-law, who had eagerly anticipated a grandchild, was heartbroken. My father-in-law, who had always distrusted Camila, was furious. She's no daughter-in-law of mine, he declared when I sought his counsel. The tension at their estate was undeniable. Camila and Lucas, now residing there, were in constant conflict with everyone. My father-in-law barely spoke to Camila. When she pleaded with him to cover her alimony payments to her ex-husband, he flatly refused. "You're nothing to this family," he stated, his voice like steel. She had crossed an unforgivable line. Unable to cope, Camila packed a bag one morning and disappeared, leaving Lucas to face his parents' disappointment alone. She'd come into this thinking she'd scored a rich husband and a cushy life, but all she got was debt and drama. Lucas, meanwhile, tried to crawl back to me one evening. He showed up at my new apartment, a modest place I'd rented in Midtown Atlanta. All clean lines and quiet peace. "Rachel, maybe we could try again," he said, his eyes pleading. I laughed. Not out of cruelty, but exhaustion. "Lucas, you made your choices." I told him. "You cheated with my stepsister. You checked out of her marriage. Long before that, I'm done." His dad had already cut him from the company, demoting him to attempt job-pushing papers. The man who'd once been heir to Brooks Construction was now scraping by, and I felt nothing but relief to be free of him. I threw myself into my work, the one place where I felt whole. Running Brooks Construction wasn't just a job, it was my calling. Every decision, from approving new projects to ensuring our workers had stable jobs, felt like a promise kept to the people who depended on me. I thought about my mom, how she'd worked herself to the bone for me, and I channeled that into making the company better. Our profits climbed, new contracts rolled in, and the board started calling me the backbone of the business. My father-in-law became my rock, offering advice over coffee at his estate, his gruff wisdom grounding me. "You're doing what I always hoped Lucas would," he said, once, his eyes soft with pride. That meant more to me than any title that I don't think about: remarriage. The idea of letting someone else in, after all that betrayal, feels like too much. My heart's been through a May grinder, and I'm not ready to hand it over again. Instead, I'm married to my work, to the thousands of employees whose families rely on Brooks Construction. Their trust keeps me going, pushes me to show up every day with a clear head and a steady hand. I've discovered my true potential and the strength it takes to persevere through adversity. Camila and Lucas are now a distant memory, serving as a reminder to trust my instincts and forge my own path. To everyone who has followed this journey, thank you. You've been with me through betrayal, heartbreak, and hard-won victories. If my story resonated with you, if it ignited a sense of injustice or the thrill of fighting back, subscribe and join me. Every project we undertake, every deal we close, reflects a narrative of resilience, passion, and fresh starts. Continue carving your own unique path, and I'll meet you at the summit.